We are back with Larry to continue We Are What We Hated. It's something that is both in the past and contemporaneous. Before we get into it with Larry, I want to read an email that I thought was pretty good. It said, sorry, Viz, I just had to drop a note. You've used a familiar phrase a few times lately, and I kind of thought it was Shakespeare and not Scripture. Turns out, well, it was Shakespeare. If you remember, we may not have done this together. We might have. But he said I did it a couple of times, so you might have been privy to this as well. The line from Shakespeare in Hamlet goes, neither a borrower nor a lender be, for a loan often loses both the loan and the friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of the economy. And it goes on and on. And that was dialogue given to Polonius, who is kind of a strange character and actually gets killed, if you remember. I think he's the one that gets knifed behind the curtain.
I thought that was one of those Poor Richard Almanac things with
oh, really?
Ben Franklin. But, I'm glad to know it was Shakespeare.
Well, and I took a look. I mean, and you're right. Nick, it's not good to show me up. And it hurts.
Yeah. And it's your show, and damn it.
Damn it. Well, yeah. I mean, I rule this thing. But I will say this. I took a look, because I'm like, you know what? I don't doubt. I mean, he just showed it to me. I mean, that phraseology is exactly what I said.
Yeah.
I took a look back in the concordance and such and went through it. And there are the same adjurations about both borrowing and lending. And, of course, there's a third thing, usury. But it was not said anywhere near as succinctly as in Polonius' dialogue. But I'll tell you what. Billy the Shaker of Spears, probably I would think kind of was thinking about that.
It's hard to beat him for the beauty of language and succinct, making of points. The guy was obviously one of the super greats of English literature.
Jeez. They go back and forth. Oh, was Sir Francis Bacon was involved in it? There were five guys. Yeah. I don't know, but the thing is, it is wondrous. Can you imagine writing all that dialogue and narrative and having it be in like iambic pentameter the whole way through? Holy mackerel!
One I like is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Yes, that's right. and who borrowed on that was Faulkner.
Yeah.
What was the name of the book?
I can't remember.
Oh, please stop me. The Sound and the Fury, I think.
Sound and Fury, yeah.
About he did almost everything set in the South.
Yeah. He took the title from it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Willie that did that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, there's just
signifying
such a awe-inspiring writer. And I don't know if it was more than one guy, and I don't, why does it have to be somebody else other than him? I don't see why one person couldn't have done that. I mean, if a person was, a genius, whoever wrote those plays and poems and sonnets and all that, whoever it was, superior talent.
It's a wonderful mystery, and if it was just he, then his life should never come this way again.
No.
And if it was something other than that, I don't care who did it. That was probably pretty brilliant stuff that we've not seen again.
He was the Johnny Unitas of literature.
Jeez, Chris, you know what you just did? In 3 seconds, you just denigrated this guy's work across centuries. I've never heard anybody do that except for you. Lord.
Well,
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to say anything bad about Johnny.
Well, you certainly didn't. All right.
Oh, man.
Now let's get to the really funny stuff.
I got to get into the decorum here.
Yeah, but you keep blaming it on me, and I don't see where you don't, get right out there in front there, kid. This is on, we don't know when this is going to air because it's a holiday weekend, so we're not going to refer to whether it was in the back or, whatever. But obviously, we kind of like to treat it with a little bit more, we really can't make it any worse than we did. That's what somebody says.
I had to throw that in there. I don't know why.
Just remember, we got an email on that said, I like to listen to last half hour when you guys freak out and do imitations and all that other stuff.
We got it in early this time.
And that was from a Canadian. I think Wilcox put him up to that.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, all right. Yeah, let's please go on, because you know what? I'll tell you, ever since you said that thing about relating what did happen, obviously, with the National Socialists and the Communists kind of like duking it out in the streets, I can't keep my thoughts away from, and the fact that they haven't met head-to-head, and that is the Occupy Wall Street.
I read something really scary this week. It was in an article about the Wall Street, Occupy Wall Street. Now they're OWS. They've even got an acronym for them. But at any rate, David Duke. Well, he's probably an FBI, provocateur. But
like Hal Turner.
yeah. David Duke is saying, "Boy, that Occupy Wall Street is great. They're going after the Zionist bankers now." Well, all of a sudden, there's a lot of rhetoric about Zionism and the Jewish bankers, and boy, it doesn't start to sound a lot like the Nazis. It's kind of strange. I'm wondering where the funding is coming for some of the stuff there, and I'm wondering really what's going on. I would imagine the majority of the people are just people that are frustrated and want to get out.
Do you remember that Charles sent us that email that said that Occupy Wall Street and Ad Buses is getting money from XE, formerly known as Blackwater? You didn't see that?
I guess not. Not.
All right. I don't know why.
Well, we know Blackwater is fascist. I mean,
well, and they take a person who's on top of that. I'll look at it later, but I'm not going to jump to the on top of this and say, oh yeah, look at this. I mean, I'd like to see confirmation on that. However, the source doesn't seem too bad, but still, it's got to come from somewhere, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people in local pockets really do believe in the whole, well, whatever it is they believe in. I don't like the phrase 99%ers, because that makes it sound like, okay, so sorry us. How come those guys make all the money?
Well, it's part of the strategy of tension. They're going to amp up the fighting in the streets. I think we're just seeing the very early beginnings of it now. But I saw, I read something that I read many years ago and kind of stumbled across it as a quote in some of the stuff that I was looking at for this program in my research. It was a quote by Christopher Isherwood, who was a British writer who lived in the Weimar Republic, and he said, it didn't matter where you went, what time of day, or what you were trying to do, He said, like, you'd be going to have some coffee in the morning at a cafe, or you would maybe having a drink with a friend, in the evening, or going out to see a movie or whatever. He said, every time you look around, there would be violence, there was just this air of violence and conflict between groups, the Nazis and the commies, fighting it out. He said all of a sudden, you're sitting there and knives are whipped out and somebody pulls up a chair and busts somebody upside the head. I mean, he put it much more erudite than I did,
okay, all right.
I think Johnny Unitas,
there it is.
Hey, whatever. But, it was like, I'm thinking to myself, that's exactly what's happening. They're going to keep this up. They're going to have this strategy of tension. And people are going to get so sick of it, they're going to want a strong man to step in and stop it, which is exactly what happened in Nazi Germany. It's simplistic, but that was one of the main reasons why Hitler did come to power.
Listen,
was to stop all that. People can only take so much of a constant disruption in their lives, and having to worry about, it was terrorism. It's a form of terrorism, and Hitler talked about it. He stepped it up in 1933 when he was wanting to take over the government altogether, and he had the brown shirts. He put on a full court press with the brown shirts to just make as much trouble in the streets as possible, and it all worked out.
You said it's simple, but you know what? All the main motivators are, and it just like you said, it just comes down to what instills fear in people.
Yeah.
And there you go. It's actually very simple, but if you get all the megaphones blaring the same thing, across the country, and what I'm really referring to is what's told to you in the media. They keep drumming you in the media, whether it's print or electronic, and they just keep harping on it, and it does finally start to make its way. I mean, again, people should take a look at Edward Bernays with Crystallizing Public Opinion and Propaganda. This guy wrote this stuff in 1920. You tell me if he didn't know what was going on. In fact, he was partly responsible for all this. So, yeah, without a doubt. And, I mean, after a while, you know, you live with this background hum in your head, and it really gets aggravating. And for those who aren't just kind of up to it, I mean, it can be really debilitating.
Yeah.
And that's what I think what's happening now. And one of the things I wondered with the media now just saying flat out, people perceive that the Congress can't do anything. You know, they take that step out. Now it's like, well, with Congress not being able to do anything, so you see what they did? They didn't say it's in the people's perception. Now they're stating it. I mean, I know that it's as fact, but the fact that they're saying it as fact takes it out of supposition, conjecture, opinion. And I think that's a very interesting twist that took place in the last month or so, because I'm starting to wonder if there's going to be now some background noise as we go through next year. Hey, you know what? This system isn't really working. Okay, you know where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Okay, you know, this is the checks and balances. I mean, it's a joke anyway, but I'm wondering if they're going to maybe we ought to trash this and do something else.
Well, I think we're going to, at some point, and this is my opinion, obviously, but at some point we're going to full-blown corporate fascism, and you know, we'll keep the structure of the Constitution there, and that's really just kind of an empty form to start with. And I think that the office of the presidency will become even more imperial or more dictatorial than it is now. And I think that with they've already got the Patriot Act in place, and I mean, we're going to see a martial law crackdown. I mean, when things get bad enough, and it shouldn't be that much longer before it happens. And I really believe that you're going to see, and probably in New York City, because that would be the best place to stage it, you're going to see a really nasty fight between the right and left, you know. And really all they're going to do is bring about a martial law and a fascist dictatorship in this country.
This is a good step into what you're doing, because I know we've got problems at home, and we're going to have increased problems at home. And yet when I look at what's going on here, I don't know how much they can push if they still want to get the mass mobilized for a war. And now, having said that, maybe off the top of your head, with a thumbnail, there was trouble amongst the factions in Germany. But eventually, what happened? I mean, you had the groups going after each other, as we are seeing just the beginning of now. But at a certain point, they had to galvanize, I guess, the populace. Because, I mean, how in the world are you going to get them to fight an external enemy?
Well, once Hindenburg made Hitler the chancellor, once he took the top spot, Hindenburg laid it open to him. The first thing the Nazis did is the Brown Shirts went around and rounded up all their enemies, the leftists. They got the socialists, they got the communists, they got the trade unionists, they got their leaders, and they took them to their cellars, tortured them, beat them up, killed some of them, killed quite a few of them, and the other ones they didn't kill, they threw into concentration camps.
But then
within the next couple of days, Hitler disbarred all the trade unions, said, that's finished, we're not having trade unions anymore. And he did it on May Day, as a matter of fact, just to kind of put it in their face. You know?
What do you know?
Yeah.
But so what I'm thinking about, and this is what people forget also, there's a lot of sunshine patriots, there's a lot of sunshine protesters. Mm-hmm. But when you give them a brick in the teeth, they can change their minds real quickly. Mm-hmm. And I'm not making fun of them. I mean, it's human nature.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking about is, okay, you can go pitched against someone, but then eventually, I mean, let's see the whole story. What percentage of any movement is really, balls to the walls, committed to it, and how many people are kind of like, let me see how this works out?
Well, I saw another example of it was really kind of sad. It was a provocateuring, but they had these kids at the University of California, Davis, who were doing a sit-in protest. in sympathy with the occupation of Wall Street. I don't know exactly what their demands were or what, but they had they had this big fat.
I know. Did you see what he did? That was
spraying
amazing.
them. I mean, he took the peppers. He like painted them with it.
I know.
I mean, that stuff hurts, man. And they're sitting there and they're doing this nonviolent protest. Gandhi style. We're not going to resist. And the guy just painted them with this. And now it's a big and they've showed it. I bet they showed the film 50 times on the Ed Show.
I've seen it. No, I mean, I sat there and I looked at my wife and I said, come on, man. I mean, clearly you enjoy this. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he just walked up and down like he was spraying.
He's a sadistic nut. I mean, the guy's sadistic. It's like, I mean, there was no point in that. If you're going to arrest the people, arrest them. If you're not, there's no sense in doing that.
It looked like he was spraying, herbicide on like weeds.
Yeah.
God almighty, back, geez.
Yeah, it's like he's spraying the bugs in his backyard or something. I don't know.
It's like these aren't human beings, and boy, isn't this fun?
Yeah, he was getting off on it. I was like, golly.
All right. So anyway, the point being is that if you start to take the heads off the organization, then pretty much they might, I would assume, the majority of them, I would think, are going to probably go ahead to what they consider the winning side. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's just the way life is. Let's face it. I mean, everybody that's in an organization, I guess you could call it pyramidal, that you're going to have, some people at the top who are really into it, and you work your way down, and then the rest are like, you know what? They're the majority, and if it isn't working out, and also if there's a promise of clean uniforms, I can go for that. Yeah, I mean that's what Rita told me, by the way. Rita Williams, who got sent back to Germany. I think you remember that story. Mm-hmm. She was begotten over here by her father, who jumped ship before World War II, got deported, and here she is. Can you imagine being born in Buffalo? Of course, anything could be better than Buffalo, but what is it?
For those of you in Buffalo listening to this program, what Mr. Vyzygoth was really trying to say.
What's the worst 3 weeks in showbiz? Christmas, Easter, and Buffalo. So they get sent back, and she was saying, but this time she's an elementary school girl. I mean, come on. And all she knows is that everything's like good in Germany, and everything's on the rise. And what she said was everybody was in the Bund, or Hitler Youth, I should say. Everybody was in Hitler Youth. And she said all we know is we had like really clean, great smelling, uniforms, and for a while that's all they really cared about. They figured everything was going well, and of course.
Well, it's like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts.
Exactly.
No big
deal. And
I'm
not saying
they were having fun.
I'm not even saying it for Rita's, benefit. I mean, not that she cares, or to the detriment of Ratzinger or anyone else. But I believe that's what was going on. I mean, you're in elementary school. What do you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so.
You don't. And you take your cues from your parents, especially, and other adults in your community that you trust, like your teachers and other people in the community, and that's all you know. And I used to try to sit in judgment. I did sit in judgment of the Germans, thinking, boy, how could they beat such a bunch of And now I realize they're no different than us. No. We're doing the same thing.
I will say this, though. I'll relate this to you, and I think this is important too, because it was a malignant mindset that ran with a lot of people in Germany. And again, with the soldiers, as long as they thought they were winning, that I think gave them, I wouldn't say the confidence, but the absolute audacity to do some of the things they did because they felt they were a juggernaut that couldn't be stopped. Mm-hmm. And, there's those kind of creeps in society as well.
Well, you're being told you're a Superman, but you're a member of a special race and that's superior to everyone else. And
that you're winning. Mm-hmm. And then things started to change. And all Rita said to me, and I think that it should be borne out as well. And by the way, the one thing that got her father thrown back into Nazi Germany was not that when he left, it wasn't Nazi Germany. But it also saved him is that when he was a cook on the steamship that he jumped, and when he went when he got conscripted, he became a cook, and that saved him. But the thing that Rita told me also is that eventually they were starting to try to get some kind of decent information from the radio and all that stuff, and who knew what was going on. But they finally understood that Germany had capitulated, and what Rita told me was she said at that point onward. It was, please, Yankees, get here before the Russians.
Yeah.
All right.
We talked about that. Yeah, the Russians were determined to pay the Germans back for what they had done to their women. And that isn't right, like we've spoken about before. That's not right. That's a horrible criminal act, and no decent man should. I don't think any decent guy would do that.
Decent people don't do that.
Yeah, but it happens. I mean, it's just the meanness of warfare.
I can only imagine what Iraq is like.
Ugh.
All right, so anyway, we got the brawling going on, which I think we're yet to see. And then, again, what you're saying is eventually you cut the heads off the leaders, and then all of a sudden everybody kind of sees the error of their ways in quotation marks. And then they can get behind a singular effort. And then I think what you have to do after that, if I got the playbook right, and that is you have to externalize the bad guys and all the troubles, and then go after whoever that is. And in Germany's case,
you go through the education system, and you teach the people what you want them to know, and they follow in lockstep. And anybody who doesn't, gets hammered. And that's just the way it goes. And it's going to be very difficult for a lot of people, especially people like us, to survive in that kind of a situation. But that's the way I see it coming down.
And I hate to say this because this really isn't a spectator sport, but I'm to a point now because of my age and such, and yourself too. I mean, you've seen what you've seen, that I sit back and I watch the news reports and stuff, and I just kind of sit there with a finger in my cheek going, here we go. It can't happen here. Oh, no?
Very definitely happening here. And you've got a budding fascist party in the Tea Party, which is, the American style, the American Nazi style party of the millennium. And those people are being duped as well, just like people were duped in the Nazi Party.
Well, you got to be duped to do it.
Yeah.
Isn't it true?
Yeah.
So, all right. Anyway, that's what I was wondering about, because I think that's happening here in the sense of there's sectionalism going on, but more so, I mean, let's call it what it is. There's always the friction that we don't hear too much about unless we're supposed to, and that is between the militant Latino movement, La Reconquista and all this other stuff. They want to take this back. And by the way, after what happens to us, you can certainly have it back. But you have that going on, and just everything in general. I mean, there isn't class warfare, but it's getting to be.
I think it's class warfare. It's just that
we haven't gotten to the
sad
warfare.
part is that there are a lot of people who would qualify as working class and middle class who are doing the bidding of a very unscrupulous upper class that is using them, and just like any other fascist state. And the people on the front lines who will be getting their heads busted are people who really don't understand that they're being used. It won't be, it won't be the CEOs of the big corporations won't be down there.
Oh, jeez, no.
They'll
be out of Dodge.
Near that, It'll be, some guy's frustrated and think he's doing the right thing, getting around, carrying a sign and, going up against whoever he's opposed to.
Yeah, I think we have a little cessation here. And there's another thing we've forgotten about as far as putting in another exacerbator into what's going on, and that is, and you're going to have to understand, I mean, people are going to have to realize this is going to be in everything, and that is, remember, we're heading for 2012. And you know it, it's going to be there. Mm-hmm. So, at any rate, this is shaping up to be, actually, I'd like to, just skip this year. Or go to Greenland until it's over?
I'll tell you what, with the nastiness of the political rhetoric and the nastiness of the way people are conducting themselves and how they identify themselves with political parties, I mean, I've never seen it in my life. I've never seen the level of just venomous speech and attitudes between the two major parties in this country. And of course, neither one of them really represents the majority of the American public. You know, they're just the corporate parties, but boy, they're getting nastier and nastier. And I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, gunfire erupts at some point.
Yeah,
and that's kind of scary.
Well, you know, when people go postal, the thing that I always shake my head at, I mean, you got to go postal. Do not shoot the receptionist in the lobby.
Yeah.
Well, you just go up to the guy you want. I mean, if you got to do that, take the time to go up the elevator.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I make light of this, but of course,
it's everybody home approach.
All right, I got a joke for you.
Okay.
When the flag is flying half-mast at the post office, what can you assume?
I don't know.
They're hiring. All right, if I had a drum roll, I keep threatening to put the drum
bad.
roll in. Yeah, I know it's terrible.
That's
bad. Okay.
Johnny Bananas, wasn't he a postal guy? I mean, not
actually, yes,
postal, but I mean, did he work for the post office?
But he went at him. I mean, he was kind of like a union guy, and he dealt with them all the time on their crummy basis, you know. Mm-hmm. And but I mean, you see, the thing is, and we won't get into that. I mean, but the thing about with Bananas, see, he was military, right? He was Navy in that situation, and they're not usually the post office is really top loaded, and I think Bananas will bear this out because that's been my experience with a lot of military guys because they get not fast track, but they get certain points and stuff because they had military service, and so they're like kind of like bring that same military mindset in with like mostly soccer moms, you know, and you know, non-military guys. But Bananas was that, so he was a hard breed, I'm sure, for him. But I mean, you know, he didn't go on in depth about it, but he certainly was a bit of a gadfly on the books, doing everything by the rule. I mean, you know, so by the book, I should say, and doing everything in that sense. He left unscathed, but that's a treacherous line to walk. But at any rate,
well, good for him.
Yeah, isn't that cool? The thing he wrote me about today was, it's starting to snow. I have to go out and clear the driveway. And I mean, but, you know, he did it. You know, he broke the tape. He finished.
Yeah.
And now, you know, he has things to do like grow stuff and, you know. And,
it seemed like a pretty relaxed, happy lifestyle he's got, or at least that's my impression.
And as much as anyone did. I mean, it was nice to have met him down here. And it's good to see somebody get there and just hope they can enjoy it. You know, how many times have people retire? It's like, boom, you know, they get 10 months and they're gone. It's like, you know, so anyway, he's a young enough man and he's hale and in good shape. So good for Johnny Bananas. Plus, he's in the top 5 in our pool also.
Yeah.
So, all right, moving on. As far as everything coming unglued in 2012, including we have this election, which, I mean, is just an absolute...
Ooh, it's going to get nasty. I mean, it is going to get nasty. I mean, you can just see it coming down the street, man. They're, they're kind of sharpening their knives right now.
I haven't heard Herbert Kane, what's his name, Herman Cain? I haven't heard him for a while. Where'd he go?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's, grabbing some girls behind.
Yeah, where's the white women? Anyway, all right. Actually, that's all you ever. No, anyway, all right. Let's move back to let's get away from us and Nazi Germany so we can see where we're going.
Okay. All right. I was going to talk some more about the Flight Capital Program, and I'm going to read from a book called The Plot Against the Peace, which was written in 1945 by Michael Sayers and Albert Kahn. And in one section, it's called Camouflage Capital, and starts off in January 1945 when the Red Army smashed through the crucial German defenses east of Berlin. German peace emissaries rushed frantically into Sweden, Switzerland, Spain, and Portugal. Edmund Hugo Stens showed up in Stockholm. Franz von Papen appeared in Madrid. Dr. Hjalmar Schacht was in Switzerland. The Vatican was besieged by German couriers. In every case, the reported peace officers were identical. Germany would get rid of Hitler. Germany would repay what she has stolen. Germany would disarm. Germany would disband the Nazi organizations and abolish the Nazi laws. Germany would transform itself, just as Thyssen had promised in 1940, into a Christian state, quote unquote. So long as Germany could keep her economic power intact, Germany's rulers were ready to come to almost any terms with their enemies. But precautionary steps had already been taken by the German General Staff and its Nazi and industrialist representatives to build hidden reserves of capital, cash, and investments in foreign countries. A dispatch from Stockholm, Sweden to the New York Times, January 30th, 1945, revealed that German industrialists were placing huge capital foundations in Sweden by registering their patents at the Swedish Patent Office to elude seizure by the United Nations. The Times dispatch read, "A perusal of patent applications, which must be recorded in a Swedish official journal, reveals that a good 50% of all patent applications hail from German firms. The latest ones come from such German concerns as IG Farben, Zeiss, Icon, Bosch, and the Daimler-Benz companies, besides the AEG and Siemens. This flight of German capital into neutral Sweden represents only a fraction of the capital investments which Germany had already secreted abroad. As of February 1945, there were no less than 987 joint stock companies in Spain controlled completely by German capital. 2,000 Spanish companies, many of them with branches and affiliates in North and South America, have German directors on their boards. As late as the summer of 1944, as the American journalist Ted Allen revealed in Collier's magazine on February 3, 1945, the International German Trust, IG Farben, built 4 new chemical plants in Madrid. In March 1944, IG Farben completed a synthetic oil plant in Pueblo Nuevo, near Cordoba. This plant had a Spanish name, Calvo Sotelo, and was supposedly controlled by Spaniards. It was owned completely by IG Farben. Also in the summer of 1944, IG Farben built a magnesium plant in Santander, Spanish northern port. Other German plants, steel, textile, munitions, and mines, exist in Catalonia, the Asturias, and the Basque Country, and in Galicia. The Spanish multimillionaire Juan March, who financed Franco's fascist phalange to the tune of $60 million, was a German spy in the First World War, a Krupp agent and a collaborator with Admiral Cunars, chief of the German Naval Intelligence. Today, March is providing commercial fronts for German capital smuggled into Spain and through Spanish outlets into South America. Portugal is another center of German financial and industrial activity. An uncensored report printed in the New York Times on January 12, 1944 disclosed, like Spain, Portugal teams with German agents, and in Lisbon they're as ubiquitous as bootleggers were during Prohibition in America. Their rednecks gleam in every bar and fine restaurant. Yeah. Through Portuguese commercial fronts, the Germans have also been able to penetrate South America. Throughout the Americas, especially in Argentina, German agents have built important new plants and gained control of mines, banks, railroads, aviation lines, chemicals, and steelworks. Fritz Mandel virtually controlled the munitions industry in Argentina on behalf of IG Farben. Axel Winter-Gren, the Swedish multimillionaire adventurer and intimate friend of Hermann Goering, has set up Krupp and IG Farben fronts throughout South America, and especially in Argentina. Testifying before the Kilgore Committee on September 12, 1944, Sims Carter, Assistant Chief of the Economic Warfare Section of the U.S. Department of Justice, revealed, and I quote, "When the German guns were silenced in Europe, the principal German industrial combines planned renewed activities from bases in Argentina. Organizations and outlets of distribution have been maintained. Profits from sales at wartime prices made ample means available. All the machinery is ready for safeguarding German supremacy in the steadily expanding South American market." The plan by which the German General Staff has operated in South America was drawn up many years before Hitler took power in Germany. If the German plan prevails, it will continue to operate many years after the smashing of the Hitler regime. This plan is directly aimed at the eventual German conquest of the United States. Immediately after the First World War, the German secret infiltration of the Latin American countries by economic, political, and military agents went into high gear in preparation for the Second World War. Captain Ernest Röhm, organizer of the Nazi storm troops, showed up in Bolivia in 1925 as special advisor to the Bolivian army. The German aviation officer Fritz Hammer went to Colombia, where he later organized Nazi espionage and economic infiltration under cover of Nazi aviation concerns. General Bonstedt became head of the military academy in Salvador and official instructor to the Salvadorian army. General Reinecke, General Kunt, and many other officers, agents of the German General Staff became active in Chile, Paraguay, and Peru, where they sought to influence the officer corps and spread hatred of the United States. Well, I think you can see there that, you know, it was a long time in coming, and the Germans planned it long in advance. They were never going to go down, and they didn't. The Nazis are in a more powerful position now, behind the scenes economically, than they were in the years of, you know, during Hitler's reign from 1933 to 1945.
Now, as far as you know, if you come across this, looking again at this example here in the United States, and I'm kind of listening to what you have to say, and especially as we get on later and later, as we have through the months, through a prism of, okay, how is that happening here? What's the equivalent of that happening here? And I'm wondering also, you've stated some of this, especially when it comes to, I think, the financiers and the industrialists. But this had to be funded also to put this movement. I mean, okay, you had political recognition, but that just isn't enough sometimes. And I'm wondering if there were some deep pockets that kind of made sure that this thing got goosed up over the top. And in fact, those pockets may have been in the West.
Definitely. Well, you know, we've already talked about the influence of Wall Street, and in particular the Bush and the Harrimans, and of course the Rockefellers. So, I mean, that's just one instance or one particular group, but it was widespread. And like that old saw that keeps saying is, not all the Nazis were in Germany, and
indeed,
and not all the Germans were Nazis too, but an awful lot of the most powerful people who brought these things about were Americans and British and French, and that's just an unfortunate part of the deal.
And yet you wonder, well, you know what? It's a good point. Not to stop you, but I keep trying to think, about like why would some French, maybe some Dutch and British, but the thing is, the people that you're talking about really don't.
They don't
live under any flag.
I mean, to a country.
No, they don't.
They have no loyalty to a country.
No.
Their loyalty is to money and power, and they don't They don't care. They don't.
No, they don't.
The American flag or the British flag or whatever, it means nothing to them. It's something they wipe their behinds on. It's basically they are an elite to themselves. They are a globalist, worldwide oligarchy, and they exist in all the countries of the world, in one form or another.
And that was my contention about the thing about Hitler. In the end, I mean, to make some of the blunders he supposedly made, I think he threw the fight. Yeah. I think he definitely threw the fight. Why did he care?
Yeah.
And not to go into that whole other thing, we may visit that another time, but people are pretty aware of when they had the coup to kill him. I mean, and I'm also thinking the same thing happened in Japan to a certain extent. It's like, after a while, you take a look at what's going on, and the solid military people are going, this isn't making any sense. Oh, by the way, Tora was on, okay?
Okay.
From 1970.
Yeah.
And
pretty good movie.
Yeah, it really is, and I got to watch it again. Insomnia struck, so I woke up and I looked at it. But the one thing that caught me was that when you see the solid military guys talking about going into this adventure with the United States, the one guy says, we can keep them busy for about a year. We can keep America busy for about a year, and that's it.
We know a lot of the people in the Japanese side. The Japanese, I'm not going to say the Japanese weren't imperialists and that they weren't brutal and that they weren't out for conquest, but they were forced into some of that, into the conflict with the United States, because the U.S. said, no, you're not going to get any crude oil. You're not going to get oil from the Dutch West Indies or East Indies, whatever, the West Indies, I guess it would be. And they wouldn't sell them scrap metal. They wouldn't do all these different things. But when they cut the oil supply off, it was like, well, militaries, any industrial nation, runs on oil. So it was kind of like, well, we're kind of forced into fighting them now. And they thought if they attacked, and they did a job on the American military for about, like I say, about a year, that they could force the United States into coming to terms with them. You know, in other words,
no.
you have your sphere and we have ours. You know.
Yeah, that's another whole situation. You know, but
Yeah.
because Butler said, Smedley Butler wrote about making Standard Oil safe in China.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you're looking at, okay, we were there to keep to keep everything safe in China. Apparently Japan went into Mongolia when we boycotted them, and we looked at it as an act of aggression, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's all push and shove. But you know what the thing is, and somebody wrote me, a listener, asking for like, well, what do you think, the problems, the reasons were for, World War II and such. And this is something I made a note that I wanted to ask you at the end, and I'll do that. But, I go, look, I can give you the textbook reason. I can give you like the supposed insider's reason and the really real reason. But the bottom line is it's profit. And that's all there really is to it. However, not Roosevelt, but the powers that be knew that the Americans would not go for a second European war. They didn't want to go into the first one until they were freaked out that the nasty Hun would jump across the Atlantic and come after them. Mm-hmm. So what happened? You go the Japanese into attacking Pearl Harbor. They signed a tripartite agreement, which means an attack on one of them, and that meant Germany,
and
Italy.
Germany was stupid enough to take the bait.
Who?
Hitler was stupid enough to go ahead and declare war on the United States. But he really didn't have to. He could have ignored that treaty. But he wanted to go ahead and do it.
But consider this, Larry. If he's somebody who's a player on another level, he was just going with the script.
Yeah, it's hard to say. But yes, I can see that too.
It's either the whole way through or not at all. Only because, it wasn't like he was some kind of character who had a change of heart and went against the rules. I think that guy was handled from day one. I don't know how big.
It's like what Dorothy Thompson was talking about.
Right.
The German higher-ups, the intelligentsia, the people in the know, they never wanted to attack the United States. They thought that was stupid and that it would be pointless because they had their friends in high office here. They had their friends on Wall Street. They had their friends in Washington, and it would just be, be doing business. What they really wanted was Europe and controlling the economy there, and having essentially what they've got now, which is control over the European Union.
And maybe we can visit this later on as a teaser if we can do that.
Yeah.
Although the listener wrote that World War II was that the German economy was okay and they were not playing ball with everyone else. And, of course, that was the reason for World War I. Remember, Germany wanted to go out and have access to the ocean and promote their economy. And, of course, that's one of the things that was written, in not the textbooks, but like the inside information, that was the problem. And, all right, that's given to us for general consumption. But the point is, in matter, if you're going to pick a fight, there's a reason for it, and it's profits for a whole lot of people, not necessarily.
Well, the way I see it is, and again, I'm going to say I don't believe that the Pike-Mazzini letter I think was false, but the proposition put forth there that the idea was to have 3 world wars to bring about world government, and I think that's what it's all ultimately about, is the world oligarchy, along with the practitioners of the world religion, want to have world government.
How dare you call William Still a prevaricator? He'll take issue with that, and you'll hear from his people.
Well, that's okay, I'll have my people call his people.
He actually.
I have no idea.
Well, Phelps. When I asked Phelps about it, because he used it in his original book, and he goes like, "No, I didn't see it." And I asked Still, and Still said he saw it because he was over at the museum in London. And I'm like, all right, all right.
All I know is that I've seen, a letter, not a letter, but a quote from the guy who was the curator of the British Museum there, and saying we've never had this letter here, never existed. That could be a lie. Who knows? But the point is,
go ahead.
The point is that
that's what happened.
The scenario is really what has happened.
Yeah.
World War I gave us the League of Nations. That wasn't very powerful. It really didn't do much. Then World War II gave us the United Nations, and I think World War III will give us world government. And that was really the whole idea behind it in the first place. And the oligarchy is playing both sides against the middle.
They are both sides.
Yeah,
yep.
They played all the powerful nations against each other, and they got what they wanted. And now they're I think the final Third World War will come. It may come in stages. I think the first shots fired in the Third World War were on September 11th, 2001. I think that was the beginning of it, and that's why that date and that incident is so important in world history. Is I believe that was the beginning of the Third World War, and I think it's going to take much longer. Actually, the Second World War did not start in 1939. The Second World War started in 1931 when the Japanese invaded Manchuria. That was the beginning of it. And the League of Nations went out and they said a few things and they namby-pambied around. And they investigated it. The British diplomat who investigated it, I've seen him on film where he shows exactly what happened and all the parties involved. And it's quite clear from that the Japanese created a false flag incident. They said that the Chinese had attacked them, and they hadn't, and then they showed that it was total BS. And they had their army right there ready to go, They go and they kick butt and they take over Manchuria, which was a province that they had been wanting. And, it all got started from there with the original Japanese attack on China.
Okay.
So, it started in 1931. Hitler really didn't get things cranked up in Poland until 39, so that was 8 years in between. And I think that's the way this war is taking place. The Third World War is maybe even longer, but it's going to be a lot more devastating because there's an awful lot more powerful weaponry now available. And I'm not just talking about nuclear weapons. There are all kinds of other horrific weapons. A lot of those weapons we won't even know about because they're being created in black labs. And I'm not talking about retrievers.
Oh, you are
bad jokes. Bad joke Wednesday.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, all right. Now, on your point about the other countries and the other people involved, I wanted to talk about France briefly. And this is the quote I'm going to read here is from Pierre Cot, French Minister of Aviation, just prior to World War II. He wrote a scathing attack on the elements that were sympathetic to Hitler and that betrayed the French nation. France was definitely stabbed in the back by traitors, and he goes on to say, enough evidence has been published already to prove that France was stabbed in the back by those who saw in Hitler the new St. George who would slay the communist dragon. When Pierre Lazare, former editor-in-chief of the Paris Soir, the French newspaper with the widest circulation, reports royalists as saying, we need to defeat to wipe out the Republic. When Elie Bois, former editor of the Petit Parisien, the most influential political newspaper, reports great industrialists admitting to him during the winter of 1939 and 40 that a plot had been organized to replace the democratic regime by a government of authority, and that this plot presupposed a Nazi victory, when Anatole de Monze writes in a book passed by the censor of the Vichy government that Marshal Pétain said in February of 1940, they will appeal to me in the third week in May. And that's when France really did capitulate. When Geneviève Tabouat tells of the work accomplished in the Parisian salons by the 5th Column's Brigade Mondaine, when Henri de Carolis, former officer and national deputy, exposes the inroads of the 5th Column in the conservative and military circles which he knew, when Henry Torres reveals to us that what was going on in the offices of official propaganda, we have every reason to accept their affirmations which tally so perfectly with the events. The French 5th Column was led by those who controlled the French steel industry and joined it to form a cartel with their German counterparts. The Bush family was prominent on the American side of that cartel, and that's my commentary. Again, from Cott's book, he explains that. The activity of the 5th Column will not be considered by historians a special phenomenon of French public life, but as an integral part of fascism. The fifth column has appeared wherever fascism has tried to gain a foothold. It was at work in Spain, Austria, and Czechoslovakia before it turned up in France, and there are fifth columns in the United States, India, and Latin America. By the fifth column, I do not mean only spies and licensed traitors. The fifth column includes all who, by accepting fascist doctrines or methods, become the conscious or unconscious accomplices of a foreign power. Treason and complicity have their degrees and nuances. The general staff of the fifth column consists principally of ambitious men who try to seize power by destroying or paralyzing the democratic system. The body of the fifth column is composed of people who think they are saving their country from the communist menace or from British imperialism, and who do not even know in whose favor their actions are operating. Through hate of the Popular Front, good Frenchmen, or men who consider themselves such, served Hitler gratuitously by doing work to which they would never have consented had they been offered payment. Why? Because they detested the Republic and democracy more than they loved France. They accepted the idea of defeat as a necessary evil, which permitted them to rid France of its democratic system and to keep in power the neighboring countries, the fascist dictators, whom they considered solely capable of maintaining order in Europe. They afterwards became unconscious collaborators of these dictators. And Paul Manning also points out the oligarchs of the French corporate elite, how they had melded together with German interests. In his book, Martin Bormann, Nazi in Exile. In the years before the war, the German businessmen, industrialists, and bankers had established close ties with their counterparts in France. After the Blitzkrieg invasion, the same Frenchmen, in many cases, went on working with their German peers. They didn't have much choice, to be sure, and the occupation being instituted, very few in the high echelons of commerce and finance failed to collaborate. The Third Republic's business elite was virtually unchanged after 1940. They regarded the war and Hitler as an unfortunate diversion from their chief mission of preventing a communist revolution in France. Anti-Bolshevism was a common denominator linking these Frenchmen to Germans, and it accounted for a volunteer French division on the Eastern Front. The upper-class men who had been superbly trained in finance administration at the two grand corps schools were referred to as France's permanent elite. And that's just kind of a couple of, a rundown on what happened in France as far as collaboration with fascism. And again, from Manning's book, I'll talk about how it relates to the United States and what happened here prior to and after the war. The Bormann organization continues to wield enormous economic influence. It's written in 1981. Wealth continues to flow into the treasuries of its corporate entities in South America, the United States, and Europe. Vastly diversified, it is said to be the largest landowner in South America, and through stock holdings controls German heavy industry and the trust established by the late Hermann Schmitz, former president of IG Farben, who held as much stock in Standard Oil of New Jersey as did the Rockefellers. With such funds accumulating rapidly in Spain, Portugal, Sweden, Switzerland, and Argentina, Bormann and his groups were handling the fortunes of 750 new corporations, would use these corporations in neutral countries as cloaks for investing in American companies. Bormann always had a high regard for U.S. blue-chip stocks as a stable investment, consistently purchasing a vast number of shares from the European offices of such New York stock brokerage firms as Merrill Lynch on behalf of the Reich Chancellor and Hitler until war became official between the United States and Germany and the buying stopped for a time. In 1941, investments in U.S. corporations by German companies and assorted German individuals held voting ownership in 170. Minor ownership was held in another 108 American companies. These businesses covered the following fields: manufacturing, foodstuffs, chemicals, electrical and automobile equipment, machinery and machine equipment, other metal products, petroleum production, refining and distribution, finance, trade, and miscellaneous. American industry, of course, had a financial stake in German industry. In the same year, 1941, 171 U.S. corporations had major investments in German firms, accounting for $420 million. A listing of these corporations is identical to the general categories under German ownership in the United States.
Can you hear this?
Yeah. Not sure what's going on there.
Well, it's either a UFO or we're getting the mosquito sprayer. They don't tell anybody. They just come through with this ominous sound. And I mean, when
I was a kid, living in kind of the swampy area of Texas, they used to come through and they spray DDT,
Here's a little malathion to start your day. Yeah,
wonderful stuff. It killed the mosquitoes and just about everything else.
I mean, that's like something from like 1984. They're coming to your house. All right, okay, that's what that was about. Sorry.
This is more on Borman himself and what he was doing. And so Borman's FBI file, and Manning had found out that the FBI knew exactly what was going on down in South America. Borman's FBI file revealed that he had been banking under his own name in New York for some time. The file revealed that he had been banking under his own name from his office in Germany and Deutsche Bank of Buenos Aires since 1941. They held one joint account with the Argentinian dictator Juan Perón. And on August 4th, 5th, and 14th, 1967, had written checks on demand accounts in First National City Bank of New York, the Chase Manhattan Bank, and Manufacturers Hanover Trust Company, all cleared through Deutsche Bank of Buenos Aires. Pretty blatant there.
Yep.
And you can't say, that the American elites didn't know what was happening there, didn't know who they were in business with.
Yep.
So I'll take a break there, and you got any questions or comments?
No, no. We're fine. I mean, there's things I'd like to talk to you about at the end with regard to what's going on now, and I've kind of said that. But no, I mean, it just gets so nasty, and it's so hard for people to believe that this ever went on when it was documented. But I mean, it's just not going to be put across the pages for the most part of the New York Times and stuff, Yeah.
The thing that opened my eyes and really caught my attention was when I heard about this book that I read from earlier, The Plot Against the Peace by Sayers and Kahn, because that book came out in 1945, the year that the war was over, and they bring out that there were congressional hearings where American officials were saying, hey, the Nazis are building up their treasures, in South America, they also talked about how, the neutral European countries like Sweden, they had gone in there and, put all these patents in Swedish, the Swedish patent office, which means that nobody else could get at it. And it's just amazing that, these people were doing what they did, and I guess the majority of the American public just didn't get it. But it's obvious that the people at the top who are really in the know did get it. They did understand.
I'm going to take this time also to poke a stick in Sweden's eye because, well, I mean, I'm kind of kidding.
I'm not particularly fond of them either.
Well, it's just that, my people are Norwegian.
Yeah.
And it was like, just great guys, you guys go ahead and pull neutrality. How the hell did you do that? And I think you just gave one of the reasons why.
It's funny you bring that up because last night I watched a show on the military channel about Quisling. It's a series on Nazi collaborators. I think Andy Coleman mentioned it, and it's a very good series. And it shows how Quisling, collaborated with the Nazis, but the majority of people in Norway, fought tooth and nail against them when they could, They had a very strong underground, very similar to that which France had, and they constantly harassed the Nazis, and they wanted their country back, and they never really bought into the whole Nazi philosophy, although some of them did, as in Quisling. But he was executed after the war for his betrayal of his country.
And just to let people know, there were two things I think that the Norwegian situation gave birth to, two idioms. One was a Quisling. A Quisling meant a traitor. And I think Fifth Column also came out of that, if I remember correctly.
I think Fifth Column actually came out of the Spanish-American War.
All right, did it? Okay.
Oh, not Spanish-American. The Spanish Civil War, excuse me.
All right. The Fifth Columnist, yeah.
Yeah.
Which was kind of like what? Kind of like swinging in the breeze a little bit, traitor?
Yeah. Yeah, it's even worse than that. It's someone who infiltrates and appears to be on the side of his country, but is actually representing the enemy.
Not to belabor this, but somebody had written to me about listening to a situation, about a story that I overheard my grandmother telling, late at night when she thought I was sleeping. And you remember that thing about
but
the guy who drove the bus of
Nazis
Nazis
he was driving the bus and said, "Well, hey, I'm going to take these clowns over the edge here."
I mean, that was still very much in their hearts, but I mean, obviously they had gotten over it. There wasn't this anger or anything, but the fact that this happened, I mean, and this might have happened like in what, probably 1957 or 58, I heard this. So, I mean, think about it. That's not a whole lot of time after World War II. I mean, it's only 13 years. Think about that, But, I mean, late at night when they, you get kind of like, maudlin and reminiscent. I mean, it wasn't any hooch involved in it. It was just, kind of getting together. And as a kid, like sleeping on the couch, I overheard that. I was like, whoa, gee. So, and then unfortunately I found out what the word quisling meant and that it was tied to a Norwegian trader. But, I mean, there is a little bit of I'm not going to say that goes on now, but there was always a little bit of tension at the fact that, Sweden, you guys got to declare neutrality, did you? That's great. So now you sick those bastards on us. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I mean, you take a look at, look at Norway. I mean, it's like a fish spine. I mean, compared to Sweden, get out of here.
Yeah.
So there's mountains, or else you get wet. That's it,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay. I was gonna talk a little more about Germany and its plans, and the Germans did the same thing prior, right after World War I that they did after World War II. In this book, The Plot Against the Peace. In the fall of 1918, within a few months of the German General Staff's decision to sue for peace, billions of marks had been smuggled out of Germany to Sweden, Holland, Switzerland, Spain, Argentina, Brazil, and other foreign centers of German commercial activity. In June 1919, it was estimated the immigrated capital which German interests had cached in Switzerland, 35 billion marks. That's a huge amount of money in today's world. The Dutch aviation designer Fokker describes in his memoirs, The Flying Dutchman, how an entire military aviation plant in Germany was dismembered and secretly transported to Holland. The Dornier Airplane Company, with headquarters in Friedrichshafen, was moved across Lake Constance to Switzerland. The Rohrbach plant was transferred to Denmark. Heinkel and Junkers established themselves in Sweden. All these transfers were done at the request of the General Staff and accomplished with the aid of the German Army. Admiral Canaris, the Imperial Naval Intelligence and subsequently of the Nazi Naval Intelligence, went to Spain to supervise German-controlled shipyards and submarine plants at Vyzygoth. Baron von Killinger, Imperial Army officer and subsequent Nazi consul in the United States, established a company in Echevarria, Spain, to experiment with new types of submarines for Krupp. And then it goes on to say the same thing's happening today, and we talked about that. I was going to read also a quote here from a German general, if I can find it. Let's see. Yeah, this is from French Resistance Weekly, Combat in 1943. They published the text of a memorandum that they intercepted, which had fallen into their hands in North Africa. And the author of the memorandum was General Otto von Stufenhagel, who ruled France for Hitler from 1940 to 44. This is what he wrote. What does a provisional defeat matter to us because of the destruction of manpower and material which we will have been able to inflict on our enemies and neighboring territories? We have obtained a margin of economic and demographic superiority greater than before 1939. The conquest of the world will require numerous stages, but the essential is at the end of each stage brings us an economic and industrial essential greater than that of our enemies. with war booty which we have accumulated, the enfeebling of 2 generations of the manpower, the destruction of the industry of our neighbors, and that which we can save of our own, we shall be better placed to conquer in 25 years than we were in 1939. The interval of 25 years is a limited interval, for there is a time which will be required for Russia to repair the destruction we visited upon her. And it goes on to say, we do not have to fear peace conditions analogous to those which we would have imposed, because our adversaries will always be divided and disunited. Our enemies recognize already that the 1919 formula, Germany will pay, lacks sense and worth. We will furnish them some brigades of workers, we will restore some art objects or out-of-date machines, and we can always say that that which we do not restore were destroyed by enemy bombardments. We should immediately prepare as camouflage a list of such objects destroyed by Anglo-American bombs. And they go on to say, the basic aim of the German plan now as in 1918 is to secure a final peace settlement, no matter how severe it may appear on the surface or how hard on the German people, which will leave German economic power intact. With amazing inconsistency, Germany's rulers are repeating the same strategy they employed in the past to obtain the kind of peace settlement suitable to their aims. In both instances, this strategy was mapped out long in advance. In his war memoirs, General Erich Ludendorff revealed that as early as 1916, the German General Staff decided it could not win the First World War, and that then began its campaign for a negotiated peace. The peace intrigues went on steadily through 1916 to 17, and were intensified after the failure of Ludendorff's spring offensive in 1918. Ludendorff tells of the hopes he placed in the Vatican as an intermediary for a negotiated peace. I also entertained some hopes, continued Ludendorff, of the efforts being made by the representatives of the Foreign Office in Brussels, Herr von den Laken, who sought to get in touch with French statesmen. He went to Switzerland, but the gentleman from France stayed away. Ludendorff reveals that the German General Staff was confident it could divide the Allied nations, play one off against the other, and so secure the kind of final peace settlement that Germany wanted. In 1918, Ludendorff told the Kaiser the war must be ended. But the Kaiser, like Hitler 20 years later, was unwilling to surrender his power and demanded a continuation of the hostilities. At this juncture, when the German General Staff was frantically seeking peace so as to forestall complete Allied victory, the famous German steel magnate August Thyssen, who's Fritz Thyssen's father, published an extraordinary confession for all the world to read. It was the most sensational document of the last war. August Thyssen stated that German industrialists were prepared to sacrifice the Kaiser in return for peace, wrote, in 1912, the Hohenzollern saw that the war had become a necessity to the preservation of the military system upon which their power depends. They, therefore, in 1912, decided to embark on a great war of conquest. But to do this, they had to get the commercial community to support them in their aims. They did this by holding out to them hopes of great personal gain. I was promised a free grant of 30,000 acres in Australia and a loan from Deutsche Bank of 150,000 pounds at 3%. To enable me to develop my business in Australia, several other firms were promised special trading facilities in India, which was to be conquered by Germany. A syndicate was formed for the exploitation of Canada. This syndicate consisted of the heads of 12 great firms, their working capital being fixed at 20 million pounds, half of which was to be found by the German government. There were, I've heard, promises made of a more personal character. What's strange about that is that 20 years later, in the summer of 1940, another astonishing and sensational confession was made public by a German industrialist. With Poland conquered and France in its last throes, the German General Staff was again ready for peace in the West, so that it could prepare the next stage of the war, the invasion of the Soviet Union. This time, the German confession denounced Hitler and stated that German industry was prepared to sacrifice Hitler in return for a favorable peace with the nations of the West. The 1940 confession, written by Fritz Thyssen, son of August Thyssen, and inheritor of the Father Steel Trust, in it, Fritz Thyssen wrote, I undertook to finance the NSDAP, which is Nazi Party, together with von Papen, von Schroeder, Kurdoff, Krupp von Bohlen, and Halbach. We are, so to speak, the guarantors of Germany and the world for Hitler's good conduct. Hitler promised us the things we most wanted. To von Papen, power and honor. To Krupp, commissions and money, mountains of money, and to me in particular, a peaceful period of German politics at home and abroad, and understanding with England. An understanding with the working classes who, through far-reaching social reforms, should be compensated for the loss of all political rights, the abolition of trade unions, and the appropriation of their property. He promised us a sort of Christian state whose authority should be supported by the church. Well, kind of see there that the oligarchies, in particular the Thysens, were laying out these kind of BS confessions in order to stop the wars and have a peace that was a little more favorable to them. And he also wrote in his famous confession, peace is to be had. The price is not high. It's easy to arrange. We still have men who hold the reins. Well, kind of wonder who those people were, but yeah. I think in the long run you can see that the world banking interest, were the people who eventually really were the overall winners in both the First and the Second World War.
I mean, you name it. I mean, who else wins? There's no other victors.
It's always those guys. They stand there rubbing their hands whenever a war gets started because they know that without much trouble they can finance both sides and make a huge amount of money off of it. I mean, it is a business. It is a business proposition, and as horrible as it is, it's the best business in the world is war.
All right, I want to know if it would be okay to ask you at that point.
Sure.
To break off.
Sure, no problem.
Well, I mean, no, look, you got to say. Only because there are some things I did want to ask you before this audio runs all that long. Mm-hmm. Are you okay at this point, or do you want to finish something up to consider it?
Well, I have one more thing to say
sure.
that is apropos. This is from an article called The Secret Report that shows how the Nazis planned the Fourth Reich in the EU. And it's written in the UK Mail, Daily Mail. This comes out of London. A man's name is Adam Labor. He was a writer and a novelist. And he began to realize that what was happening in the EU, had been planned long ago, and that the Nazis were part and parcel of that. At any rate, at one point in the article he says, war had been extraordinarily profitable for the German economy. By 1948, despite 6 years of conflict, Allied bombing, and post-war reparation payments, the capital stock of assets such as equipment and buildings was larger than in 1936, thanks mainly to the armaments boom. Earhart pondered how German industry could expand its reach across the shattered European continent. The answer was through supranationalism, the voluntary surrender of national sovereignty to an international body. Sounds familiar. Germany and France were the drivers behind the European coal and steel community, the precursor to the European Union. The ECSC was the first supranational organization, established in April 1951 by 6 European states. It created a common market for coal and steel, which is regulated. This set a vital precedent for the steady erosion of national sovereignty, a process that continues today. But before the common market would be set up, the Nazi industrialists had to be pardoned, and Nazi bankers and officials reintegrated. In 1957, John J. McCloy, the American High Commissioner for Germany, issued an amnesty for industrialists convicted of war crimes. The two most powerful Nazi industrialists, Alfred Krupp of Krupp Industry and Friedrich Flick, whose Flick Group eventually owned a 40% stake in Daimler-Benz, were released from prison after barely serving 3 years. Krupp and Flick had been central figures in the Nazi economy. Their companies used slave laborers like cattle to be worked to death. The Krupp company soon became one of Europe's leading industrial combines. The Flick Group also built up a new pan-European business empire. Friedrich Flick remained unrepentant about his wartime record and refused to pay a single Dutch mark in compensation until his death in July 1972 at the age of 90, when he left a fortune of more than $1 billion, the equivalent of 400 million pounds at that time. I think that is kind of reinforces what we've been talking about earlier as to who benefited from the wars, and also what it's setting up. And of course, we talked quite a bit about the Holy Roman Empire, the new Holy Roman Empire, the Fourth Reich, which is being put together in Europe as we speak.
Okay, so
I guess I'm tired of talking now.
No, I mean, so it's fair game, right?
Yeah.
Okay, a bunch of things. You and I have seen many emails that have come through to us, from Charles Wilcox. I mean, and that's why we mention him, because Charles is active in this. And you also see Liam's take on what's going on in Europe, and they're at odds as to what really is the real deal. And maybe it's a little bit of both. It's not a big deal. It's just that I just find it interesting above all things, and trying to clue this thing out. Well, it just may not be for us to be able to do that. Certainly none of us have all the information. But it's, going back to that listener's email who talked about, well, what was the real reason for World War II? And he talked about what looked like Germany's burgeoning economic strength, if that's the case. And, of course, that was also supposedly at the root of World War I, with them also needing some access, obviously, to surface shipping, which, of course, if you think about Germany, for whatever size it is, it doesn't have much coast, okay? I mean, it just doesn't. And Denmark sits there like a pimple on top of it. But now we look at a possible scenario for World War III, and there are some that are pointing to the fact that Germany's an economic power, as witnessed by the fact that they're going to backstop the European Union's financial salvation plan for the countries that are in trouble, which doesn't really look. I mean, I don't know. I mean, at one point, Merkel looks like like Mother Teresa. That's probably not a good example. And also, I mean, at the same time, she also looks like another warmonger. I don't know which is true, or if either one is, or there's something in the middle. But Germany was put together for a reason, and it wasn't just because the two countries decided to shake hands across the wall and call it a day. Now, and I know that there were Western interests that decided that Russia should also streamline itself from being the Soviet Union and kick to the curb a whole bunch of republics, for the most part, too, that really didn't share anything racially with them. I mean, there's Slavs and there's Turkic people, and what's the connection here? They're Muslims, the others are Orthodox, whatever that meant. So, I mean, these things didn't happen because there was this burning spear for people to be free. And when the two Germanys united, that was a called plan. That's what they were told to do. And I think in both cases you can see that after that happened, both nations, Russia streamlined just to Russia, and the two Germanys now melded as one, did pretty well economically, better than they had done before, I would say. So, I mean, this stuff just doesn't happen because people want this to go on. It's done because it is, I mean, and Larry, if you feel differently, that's fine. To me, this is all part of the script.
Well, I think it, like we were talking about earlier, it's just a plan, and I say a plan. It's a plan that's put together by the elites, the world oligarchy, to bring about world government. And I think the most powerful element within it is one that we haven't talked about nearly as much, and that is the Vatican. And I believe that just in times past, when the Vatican and Germany used each other to further each other's aims, so it will be again. And I believe that we haven't seen the reemergence of the power of the Vatican in Europe. I believe you're going to have a European Union which will morph into the final stage of the Holy Roman Empire. And by Holy Roman Empire, I mean an empire which will have an oligarchy, an emperor, and a pope. And I believe that Roman Catholicism will once again be the predominant religion in Europe, and eventually, I believe, in the world. I believe it will be leading the pack for a world religion. it's not speculation on my part to say that the Roman Catholic Church is the leading element in ecumenism.
There you go. Yep. Uh-huh.
I mean, it's there. I mean, it's been going on for quite some time. And the idea being that, the reason that the world has had so many problems and can't get along, one of the main reasons is because we have all these different religions, and we all need to come together as one, and it's just that God has revealed himself to different people at different times in different ways in different cultures, and it's all just the same thing, and yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. And I believe that you will, in my opinion, I don't like to use the term Antichrist because in the Bible, Antichrist can mean more than one thing. It can mean someone who is opposed to Christ. It can mean a system or a spirit of being opposed to Christ. Mm-hmm. But it also, in one sense, I could say that it refers to a man who will lead that system. And in different parts of the Bible, he's called the man of sin, the son of perdition. And I believe that there will be a counterfeit of the Holy Trinity of God, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. And in this counterfeit, you will have Satan, the man of sin, the Antichrist, and the false prophet, whom I believe will be the Pope. And it's possible that even a Pope may be the man of sin. I don't know. I'm not. Back in the old days of the Protestant Reformation, several hundred years ago, almost all of the major founders of the Protestant Reformation, such as Luther and Zwingli and many of the others, all believed that the Pope would be the Antichrist, that a Pope would be the Antichrist. I don't know. There's evidence. It could be brought up either way. People can probably argue about that till we're blue in the face. But I have no doubt whatsoever that the prophecies in Daniel and the prophecies in Revelation are going to come about, and that you're going to have a world ruler, and that he causes all to to take a mark, which would be the number of his name, and how that would be done, I don't know, but I'm sure that in today's world, it could be done with a tattoo. That could be a barcode. It could be something slipped under your skin. I don't know, but if you don't have it, you won't be able to buy or sell, and those who don't wish to take it will be persecuted and killed. And that's what the Bible says, and I believe we're going to see relatively soon in the next few years a world government come to pass that will be set up in Europe. Its main seat will be in Europe. And the leader, the man who will become the eventual emperor of that system, will be a man that will make Hitler and Mussolini look small time. We're going to see an inquisition, just as World War II really was. The Holocaust was nothing more than a continuation of the Inquisition. And they try to keep it hidden, but the facts of history are that the Roman Catholic Church was in on the Holocaust, especially if you study Croatia. They actually had Roman Catholic priests, and in particular Jesuits, who were running the camps there, where Jews, Orthodox Christians, and Muslims were murdered. And that's just a fact. It's a chilling fact, and they try to keep it hidden. You won't see anything much about it in mainstream news. Or I did see a program on the History Channel the other night that actually admitted it. Was going through the history of that and showed that to be the case. They tried to whitewash the Catholic Church's role in it. Like, well, this is just bad apple individuals. That was kind of the attitude they took. But that's not true.
A couple things. When Bill Johnson and Chris were on, we went back and forth about a bunch of things, and it was Randy Morgan who had said to me a year or so ago, more than a year ago, there is no Antichrist in Revelation. And there is an Antichrist, shall we say, with a capital A. That probably would be the best way to put it. Now, and Chris and Bill and I were going back and forth after the fact. I said, look, there is no big boogeyman with a capital A in Revelation. And that is just what Scripture says. However, I said there is undoubtedly a personage that's going to come on the scene. Call it what you wish. It really, isn't.
Let's call it a world dictator.
Yeah, it's going to be
who
somebody.
Who is Antichrist. And I mean by that, he is against Christ.
Right. And of course.
Or in the place of Christ.
And Lord knows there's been millions of Antichrists with small a's.
Oh, yeah.
That's really, I think, what it refers to. Now, there'll be somebody who comes on, yes, that will. But remember something, too. As you mentioned before, we had World War I. What did we get out of that? Kind of a weakened League of Nations. Didn't work out that well. Then World War II, bang, we get the United Nations. And, of course, it's always a system that promises to guarantee peace.
Well, they always take it in stages. It's always the dialectic at work.
Exactly.
And I think this Third World War will finally bring about that world government which they seek. And, they talk about how they make everyone small and great. Everyone will have to take that mark, and you can't buy or sell without it. Well, it's going to be we'll be in a fascistic economic bondage and eventually driven into a modern version of feudalism. And I think that the eugenics program that the Nazis perfected to some extent, I say the Nazis brought it along. The Nazis evolved it.
They ran with it.
Yeah. And I think that will be perfected under this new tyranny, this new world order, if you like. In fact, Hitler used the term New World Order quite a few times, just as well as his one of his benefactors' sons, I would say George H.W. Bush, made the term popular in the United States.
But remember, that term was popping out of everybody's mouth, even in England. I mean, H.G. Wells. I mean, come on. I mean, this is something. I mean,
it dates back to the satanic plan to. Satan desires to run the world totally and to be worshipped as a god. That is his main. That's the one thing he cherishes the most, is the idea of being worshipped and being in the place of the Most High. And that happened, probably many thousands of years ago, that all of these things were put into motion. And it's the dialectic. It's the stop and start, and it just keeps going on. And I think that we're being set up for. It's not by accident that the United States economy was, quote, globalized, that all the jobs were taken overseas, to foreign countries, and American workers were, left without a job. It's not by accident. It's pure greed, but it's also to break down the economy of this country. We're going to be brought down to the level of people in third world countries who are essentially live in feudalism.
There will be nothing other than third world countries.
Yeah.
Another thing, though, too, is, and just to say this, first of all, people want nothing to do with the biblical situation because of whatever they've heard or what they believe about, we want all this crap to go down so we can hasten the return of Christ. No, that's not the way it goes. The thing is, it is harder. Well, I guess maybe it's impossible to a certain extent for folks to understand what we're up against if you want to deal with it just a secular New World Order, like just with politicians and armies and all that stuff, and there's nothing behind it. And I understand that. However, you still have a very big juggernaut to deal with if you want to leave it only in that realm. But the other thing I would have to say, too, and I know it's going to get bad, although some would say, well, forget that. There's all kinds of things about this. But, all the plans may not ever come to fruition because there'll be a time. What they plan necessarily, they may not have the time to implement. It's going to be bad, but it may not be as bad as we think, given their plans, because at the end they are going to be confounded. What I wanted to bring something else out to you also, yes, and here's the thing. When I got involved in gold and silver and such, I told people there's nothing foolproof about anything if you're trying to, just maintain whatever assets you have. Yeah, we got out of 401ks, we got out of mutual funds and all that jazz. But and I always said, look, if I wanted to put a kibosh on gold and silver, if I'm the emperor of the United States, I say, okay, nobody can transact in that. That would immediately make you an outlaw. So you see, it's very easy to do in a sense. Now, with that in mind, with the bit about no one will either be able to
buy or sell.
But remember something too. I'm also looking at the vaccination thing, which is really trying to make more and more inroads and get rid of all the naysayers and those who resist, because there could come a time when, and I tell you what, it's already been like bandied about in language in the last 10 years or so. It's like, well, if you don't get a vaccination, you're a terrorist. You could be
considered a terrorist because you're endangering the community.
Right. No vaccine, no transactions.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really easy to do, and it can come in a bunch of forms.
You don't knuckle under, you can't buy or sell.
But
whatever.
You see, we are being put in a position out in back of this terrorism thing where, I mean, they can make anything up they want at any time, and whatever they say goes. And I think back to, like I said, what Montgomery was talking about, and, be careful about the fights you pick. You can try to indemnify yourself against anything in court, all this other stuff, but in the end, you're dealing, whether it's the United States or any place else, with an increasingly totalitarian mindset, which is basically, we can change the rules and we will. Yeah. So don't think you got it all together because you got something on them on this given day, because there'll be another day when that will not work. And if we are moving to a world government, whatever you people think the Constitution is, which is nothing, it's not going to be anything anyway because we're going to work into something further. So, you
have an illusion. You have an illusion of rights now, and to some extent, you have rights. Whenever it's not a problem for them to grant them to you, or allow them. In other words, I'll just give you an example. A guy went to a rally against Bush several years ago here in Austin, and he had a sign that said, F Bush, and I'll let you fill in the rest of it. And he got arrested for that and was told that was obscene, blah, 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 and disrespectful, and he got arrested and fined for it. Well, he sued, and he won the suit due to the free speech laws. That was considered to be covered by the Constitution, and he had freedom of speech to make that statement. But, it wouldn't take very much, for somebody to have said, oh, no, that's not covered by, the law, freedom of speech, that's obscene language, and, we're going to put you in a can here for a while.
But not to confuse the issue, here's the situation also, and I was going back and forth with Robert Denton about this, who was inquiring about the Constitution, given that the I-Man and Montgomery were on recently. And I said, the lower courts really actually believe you have a Bill of Rights, because they really don't know any different. And you're probably going to get some kind of constitutional protection there. My point is, as far as I can see, if you try to move that constitutional protection to a federal court, forget about it.
Yeah.
And that is the telling situation, because as many federal cases have gone down and stated, and that is a private person is not a party to the compact known as the Constitution, which is a contract between the federal government and the states, not the private person. So you're right. In the Informer's books, he writes about how some lawyers find themselves, when they're in federal court, in an admiralty court, and don't know they're there. And then it's a different game plan, and they got to get apprised by the judge. It's like, here's what we're doing here. So it's it's not all that widely known. There's examples. I was talking to a lawyer who happened to have a son that played high school baseball, and I was covering the games, and we talked. I didn't press him on much, but it was clear that there's a need to know, and if you're not going to go up there and pursue those kind of cases, you're not going to really know about it. And so, yes, you probably erroneously can get constitutional protection in your town and your county and probably in your state. But if you go to a federal court, it does not happen. And that's the difference. And when Gonzalez was on C-SPAN, right after I first started having I-Man on, you remember how long ago Gonzalez was on? Was it?
Yeah, it was quite a while back, yeah.
No, the guy was an absolute Nazi, but...
Yeah, he's a jackass.
Yeah, but it wasn't his thinking. When on C-SPAN he said, no, people do not have rights, they have privileges. And I'm like, yep, that's it, bingo. He just said it right there.
Well, he was right. When you're right, you're right, no matter how big a jerk you are,
No, if anything, he went ahead and just, let it out, but nobody really picked up on it.
Well, nobody, yeah. I remember him saying that, and I think there was like a couple of little editorials, and people made comments about that, you know. But the fact of the matter is, he's right, and people just they don't understand how limited their freedom is if they have. Well, you really don't have any freedom. I mean, was that old Doors song, "Tell Me Where Your Freedom Lies"? Well, I don't know where it lies, but it's not in this world.
You know, actually,
I mean, we're controlled by spiritual entities that are a lot more powerful than the international bankers. They just work through those people, and they control those people, and they've inflicted all sorts of harm and death upon the population of the world ever since the Garden of Eden, and they're still working their little magic on us, and that's really the crux of the matter. It's a spiritual evil, you know. For now we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers of darkness, to paraphrase the Apostle Paul.
In a conversation I had with the I-Man prior to him coming on with Montgomery, we were talking about some stuff, and he had just hit upon something, and he was talking to me about it, and at this bit about you're not a resident of the United States for any other reason except you presume that you are, and everyone else presumes that you are. And we go into something beyond that too. But here's the point. The thing is, we are very much in a matrix, and we are very much under presumptions that we think we know what they are, and we act as if that is the case. And in fact, it is not true. But the thing is, where I'm going with this, without getting too existential, if I could ever get that way, and that is
you and Kierkegaard, right?
yeah, me and Kirk, yeah. Right?
Yeah, wasn't he Norwegian, Kierkegaard?
Oh God, please don't tell me that. I thought he was German. If I don't like them, they're German.
I know. They're like the Austrians, you know. They don't like to claim Hitler. They like to claim Mozart, you know. But Hitler's out.
I think it's easy for us to understand that we live actually in a matrix, and it's just what we've been placed into.
Yeah.
And I think
red
the Lord,
pill, blue pill, you know.
Well, the Lord understands it. The point is, this isn't the final thing. This isn't where it's at. This doesn't end here. You exist through this for whatever reason. You've been given this life, which isn't wholly at bad. But the point is, this is not the end game. And no matter how anybody can declare themselves free, in essence, as long as we are trapped in these finite bodies that are, that, as you and I are speaking, are becoming more corrupt and old.
Exactly.
We are. Come on, give me a break. You're a slave to your
I remember watching my father, during the course of his life. I remember when I was a kid, my dad was like, he was a big guy. He was about 6'5", had a huge barrel chest. He weighed about probably 260, 270, when I was a young man or a boy. I didn't run my mouth at my dad. He definitely intimidated me just physically. But, as I saw him age, and at the end, he was so weak and decrepit, and it was just hard for me to believe, because I lived a good distance away and I didn't see my father that often, during the year. But every time I saw him, I was shocked at the deterioration, physical deterioration. And it's, after a while, it hits home, this too will happen to you, and it's already started, from the time you're born, really.
But the good news is, fear not, we can kill the body, but we can kill the spirit. And so, I this old bit, I didn't sign on for this part. No, I'm still like 15 playing ball. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And it's like these eyes look out as if I was still 15 and wanting to do things now that I know I can't, and I don't like it. And it's like, I got nothing to complain about. But
I remember one time hurting myself. I was moving some equipment around that I changed back to my old job, which had more, there was more physical work to be done. And I remember grabbing a piece of aluminum bar stock. It was fairly heavy, and I'd been used to moving it around, and I hadn't done that in like 2 or 3 years. I grabbed a hold of it, and just really messed up, got tendonitis in my shoulder, you know, and it's like I feel something pop. I thought, wow, you know, that's weird, you know, and you just think you can do things that you know, my doctor goes, well, you're getting older and, you know, your body's just not able to handle that. He said, yeah, you think you're 18, but your body knows you're 45.
Yeah.
You know?
And you might want to combine those ages and you'll get closer to where you're at.
Yeah, I'm 62 and counting, 62 and holding.
Yeah, you were 62, 5 years ago? No.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is, that's what's natural. That's the normal progression. But the point is, that's all part of the deal. And so if you are you can never truly be free here, but that's understood. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I mean, there's something else after this. So, I mean, it's not that I want to capitulate only because, there's heaven and hell and all. No. I mean, I'm to a point now, and like you are too, you know, we've seen a whole bunch of cycles, all kinds of movements, all kinds of high platitudes, and when it comes out in the end, it ain't nothing but spit. That's all it is. And we're watching another one, and it's not going to change. And
it's always about deceit. It's always about manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and especially in the realm of politics, that's all it is. I had a quote here that kind of came to mind. This was done by this is a quote from Henry Wallace, who was Vice President of the United States during World War II. It came out in April 1944 in the New York Times. The American fascists would prefer not to use violence. His method is to poison the channels of information. With the fascists, the problem is never how to best present the truth, but how best to use the news to deceive the public into giving the fascist and his group more power and more money. Goes on to say, they claim to be super patriots, but they would destroy every liberty guaranteed by the Constitution. They demand free enterprise, but are the spokesman for monopoly and vested interest. Their final objective, toward which all their deceit is directed, is to capture political power so that using the power of the state and the power of the market simultaneously, they may keep the common man in eternal subjugation. The end point of their deceit is the tyranny of a corporate-controlled economy. I think that's exactly what's going on today.
Well, you know, understand, as much as you and I went back and forth about definitions, I never once ever disagree with you where we're going. Mm-hmm. I just think that the time when corporate fascism reaches its perfection, mm-hmm. there are no corporations. Mm. It's only the state. Mm. There's no more government.
It's all merged into one. And also add in religion. It's all in one. You know, that's really what fascism is. That's another thing they don't like to talk about. When a lot of historical work have been done about fascism, they really tiptoe around the fact that the Roman Catholic Church had a lot to do with fascism and had helped fascism to develop. I remember that one of the quotes from the Pope just prior to Pius XII said that Mussolini was the man of providence that God had sent them. Well, actually, he was the man of providence that they had propped up with their money and their backing. And, I mean, the fascist regime in Italy never would have taken off if it hadn't been for the fact that Mussolini made peace with the Vatican through the Lateran Treaty and gave the Vatican a ton of state money and also guaranteed them that they would have control over education in Italy and, gave the Vatican a favored status in the eyes of the fascist state.
Can you
and then on their part, the Vatican went in and told, at one point the fascists were having trouble taking over in Italy because they couldn't win elections against the combined socialists and communists. And the socialists didn't like either, all three groups disliked each other. But the socialists were the most popular, and the fascists came in a close second, but the Pope said no good Catholic would dare vote for a socialist or a communist. And I don't think any of the Catholics were voting for communists anyway, but that got rid of the socialist vote and put the fascists into total control.
In the end, though, don't you get the feeling that the reason why Italy was even involved in the Axis powers at that time, and they don't call them that, but I guess they did. But I mean, it's basically it gave Rome protection because they were on the bad guy's side,
Mm-hmm.
which they knew they had more to fear if they weren't. And so I look at Mussolini as being a jerk that was just like, yeah, okay, get on board, say the right things, but don't get too crazy.
Mussolini was basically a political prostitute. He didn't really have all he wanted was power. He didn't care how he got it or how the state conducted its business, but he wanted power, and he hitched his wagon to the big financial concerns and the big industrialists along with the Vatican, and that's how he got in there. Mussolini, at one point, was the most popular and most well-known socialist in Italy prior to World War I. He had been the editor of a very famous socialist newspaper. He had read the works of Karl Marx when he was a teenager and was supposedly a devout socialist as a young man. But, when he came back from the war, he wanted to get in with the powers that be, and he wanted to control he wanted the wealth and power in his hands, and it didn't matter to him, whether it was socialism or fascism.
Also, with your remark about religion in a totalitarian environment, actually, like everything else, the state becomes a religion as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the state.
Yeah, it's all going to be amalgamated, and it will be this overwhelming totalitarian system, and you will owe your allegiance to the state. In the personhood of the, you will bow down and worship the emperor just as they did in ancient Rome.
Lastly, I want to leave you with a scenario. I was talking to the Renaissance landscaper probably somewhere around 88. Mm-hmm. I guess, I don't know. And the talk, now again, remember, I'm not really sure about the era, but I know it was the 80s. Mm-hmm. Germany had not been unified yet, but the conversation...
Oh, yeah, you told me that story, and he said that...
don't ever let him back.
Yeah, don't let him do it, man, because it'll be trouble.
And I looked at him, because, he was half German, half Italian. I'm like, are you saying that they're, like, predisposed to that? I mean, he was as libertarian or liberal as they got, and he goes, yes. Yeah. But, the thing was, well, what did you expect? I mean, we looked at this situation where, the East would be a drag on the Western economy, and whatever rough times they may have had, and you have to assume there was some, they're doing absolutely fine. Russia's never done better, I would assume, than they have before they cut loose the other republics. They streamlined. That's all they did. They got efficient. But this is all calls that were being made for a bigger end, an end game that is farther, than what we can even see right now, although you and I and a lot of the people out there in the alternative or patriot group or whatever, at least understand that looks like it might be, something that's ever evolving. And as you have said before, even more particularly with some of us inside that who believe on Scripture, that we're looking at something that is a revived Rome, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. I mean, I see it coming.
All right, look, we said we would talk about this before you went. We kind of alluded to it earlier, because I think it's very, very rich what's going on with this Tea Party and then this rising up of Occupy whatever, and the way that they immediately, they're galvanized and they have, hard lines drawn between them, and I'm not so sure that's the case from where I'm sitting. I think you feel the same way. But having said that, and because we said we would introduce this before the audio was over, what are your thoughts about what's going on? What are you thinking about?
Well, I have an article by a man named Ernest A. Canning called "Tea Party: Future, Fascism, Feudalism, and Economic Collapse," and he says the radical right agenda hidden from so many of the uninformed working class useful idiots, aka post-2008 Tea Party followers, was aptly described by Chalmers Johnson in the book The Shock Doctrine. He says, and this is Chalmers Johnson, what has become painfully obvious is that many within these wide layers of the population simply do not realize that the source of the middle class demise lies not in the government per se, but in the carefully thought out decades-long effort of the hard right to starve the beast by massive tax cuts for those who already have too much in order to, in the words of Grover Norquist, reduce government to the point it could drown in a bathtub, and in order to privatize the commons so that the privileged few can be enriched beyond the wildest imagination of ordinary citizens. Bill Moyers, he quotes Bill Moyers in Moyers on America 2004, radical political elite who have inequality as its mission and has organized a fanatical drive to dismantle the political institutions, the legal and statutory canons, and the intellectual and cultural framework that have shaped public responsibility from social harms arising from the excess of corporate private powers. Later on in the article, Canning says, thanks to corporate control of the media and the politicians, their wealth promotes. Economic disparity produces a vast gap in political power, which in turn produces policies designed to further exacerbate inequality. The logical outcome of privatization, never-ending tax cuts for the wealthy, and round after round of cuts to public services is not just the realization of Grover Norquist's infamous call for the government to be reduced to the point that it could drown in a bathtub, but the elimination of government as a source of public services or as a vehicle in which individuals and the environment can be shielded from the arbitrary excesses of corporate wealth and power. And he goes on to talk about a report that a man named Silverstein did about the state of Arizona, which is famous early on in the whole Tea Party. The state is just completely bankrupt. It has huge deficits, which they're addressing by cutting social spending in an extraordinary way. They're doing away with all-day kindergarten, and they're kicking kids off of health care programs, taking very, very dramatic steps in order to control the budget deficit. They want to keep starving the beast while squandering the national treasury on corporate welfare, the military-industrial complex, and wars for imperial conquest, and eventually there will be no money whatsoever left for public education, health care, environmental protection, or public safety. The end point has to be the elimination of res publica, producing a harsh winner-take-all society in which all semblance of community and common interest has been thoroughly eroded. Instead of a source of public good and democratic accountability, government will become but an empty shell that, as revealed by the Arizona Tea Party experiment, spends its time in what George Orwell described in 1984 as the 3 minutes of hate, exemplified, for example, in the immigrant-bashing legislation, which riles the useful idiots, diverting them from the true source of their demise. In free fall, Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz observed that while the top has been doing very well over the last 3 decades, incomes of most Americans have stagnated or fallen. The consequences were papered over. Those at the bottom or even the middle were told to continue to consume as if their incomes were rising. They were encouraged to live beyond their means by borrowing. The 2008 Wall Street implosion underscored that long-term this neoliberal system is simply unsustainable. So I thought that was a pretty good article about our friends in the Tea Party.
Well, while they complain about big government, and we can agree with that, and while Occupy Wall Street, unfortunately, has had this forwarded as their mantra, which is the 99%ers, you know, my feeling is, look, you're never going to screw the bankers out of what they want. And you're never going to screw the corporations out of what they get financially. The thing I'm saying is let them have what they want. My problem was, how come you're the ones who take jobs and means of production and bring it outside the country? That's all I'm looking at. I mean, this whole bit about now how only jobs can be created by the small business guy. It's like, oh, and we let them off the hook. And we've been through that, so I'm not going to beat it to death here. But that's my point. It's like, no. Because what happens is the right and the Republicans look at what Wall Street's doing and say, oh, you guys are a bunch of Bolsheviks. You want, like, you know, a communist, you know, you want everybody equal, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, that's what they get branded with, and that's what hits the media. And that is what they're going to be epitomized
that's already
as.
Started Newt Gingrich and that bunch.
Gosh, why is he still around?
I thought it was... It reminded me of the 60s. He was talking about the protesters, said, what they need to do is go take a bath and then get a job, you know.
Here we go. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, the smelly hippie thing. I don't know.
But you mean now, because you and I are both grumpy old men.
Yeah, yeah.
What I've been trying to tell people, I think with a certain amount of success, is the reason why we're grumpy old men is because we've seen this crap run how many times through our lives?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, there was a Vietnam, there was a Korea, there was a Vietnam, there's an Afghanistan. I mean, come on, man. Come on, man, as Chris Carter would say.
Well, I was even talking to a friend of mine today, and I guess my influence has rubbed off on him a little bit. He was talking about Occupy Wall Street. He said, you know, I think you're right. He said, I think that whole Occupy Wall Street thing is just going to bring about martial law. And I said, well, that's kind of the way I look at it. You know, they're setting up a conflict there. And I truly don't trust that whole Occupy Wall Street thing. I think that is maybe some of it was spontaneous, but I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, I think there's you know, I think you've got the Koch brothers who, incidentally, their aunt and uncle ran Buchenwald concentration camp. And,
so they're good at what they do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and people just, you know, they worship these people. You know, they're Nazis. They're, you know, they don't give a damn about the common man. These people have billions of dollars. You know.
But remember, I also mentioned that there's obviously this connection supposedly between Blackwater, now known as XE, with Ad Buses, which is behind Occupy Wall Street, or not all the occupying. I don't know about that yet. That was interesting.
I don't know if that's true, but you know, I really wouldn't. That doesn't sound so far-fetched.
It isn't, but the thing is, somebody's backing it, so let's find out what's going on.
Yeah.
But you know,
here's the thing that gets me about it, Biz, and it's becoming more and more apparent. They're down there, and well, not just in New York, but in other cities too. But there is a rising level of violence. The cops are getting more and more amped up, and yet the Occupy Wall Street crowd is leaderless, and there are no demands. So what are they doing down there? You know, are they just going around saying, you know, Wall Street's bad. You know, they're greedy. I mean,
yeah, but Larry, remember something, and we fall prey to this too. I felt the same way as you, and I'm just saying, I caught myself and said, okay, wait, are they all that vapid, or are we just getting what the mainstream wants us to see?
That
you know what I mean?
True too.
Are we getting the guy who just came out of the bathroom? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I have to give him that much. And whatever's coming forward now, I've tried to get some Occupy Wall Street people on, hasn't worked out. Gene tried to do that up in New York. I might be able to get somebody on from Utica, which is a more grassroots thing. It's probably a bit more true to what's going on.
That would be more interesting to me because you would probably get a more focused, directed
absolutely.
view.
Yep. And there's no doubt about that. And actually, it's somebody in the family of Andy Sr. Up in Utica, and he's right. He goes, no, I mean, if he's looking at this thing saying, okay, I don't care if it's in the family. He's saying that they have more pristine causes and are a little bit more detached from the high visibility places, so you know that they're really a little bit more grassroots.
Yeah.
And you know, and somewhat successful in what they're trying to put across, because they're trying to do things locally, and apparently at least they have a dialogue going on there. Yeah. But this other stuff, I mean, it's all cartoon, and you know that. It's like, here's the good guys, here's the bad guys.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. If I could, may I bring this to a close with this last revelation?
Why, certainly.
Don't start with me. Remember, we talk after this recording's over. Rat.
And I'd like to apologize to all the English literature majors out there about my comment about Johnny Unitas.
You know, I'll tell you what.
But I don't know. Every once in a while, the adolescent humor it overwhelms me.
If I could have said the Sports Illustrated that did a thing on him, it was just probably just well written, and a picture of him. I mean, you know, jeez. I mean, a boy out of Coal Town, another fine quarterback out of Southwest Pennsylvania. Isn't that amazing?
I'll tell you what, man. All joking aside, I love that guy. I love to watch him. He was certainly not the most graceful-looking athlete I've ever seen, but the guy was a tremendous quarterback. I mean, I've never seen anybody better.
All right. We're gonna go back and we'll close with that anecdote. I just want to share this with you.
Okay.
Jacob Appelman was on for 2 hours live.
Yeah.
And
I heard that.
And we archived that. And Jacob said things have been interesting since I came his way.
Yeah.
But here's what he sent to me, and I'm just throwing this out there. I mean, I'm not waving any bloody flag. It just is what it is. But I had to laugh because he said, okay, here's the visits we're getting. And without any dedicated, referring URLs. All right. Now, we got a visit from J.P. Morgan Chase & Company. Hi. We got 4 from, and I'm sorry that I don't know what this means, but I know it isn't good. USAISC. It's got to mean something with strategic command on the end and U.S. in the beginning. So it's the United States, all right? Mm-hmm. We got 4 visits out in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Hi. And then we got one from, get this is the best, Tehran. Islamic Republic of Iran. All right, and then we got some more. 3 visits from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, DOD. All right, this is what it stands for. United States Army Information Systems Command. That's what the U.S. All right.
Yeah, it's Army Intelligence is what it is. 3
again from Cheyenne, Wyoming. Hi. And 1 from, I needed this, Tel Aviv.
All I can say is we are not promoting any sort of violence. So everybody that's worried about it, cool out.
No, I think everybody should take laxatives.
Yeah.
So here we are at the end of the show. Anyway, about Johnny Unitas, I'll just say this. One of the stories they were talking about, they were playing the Bears or something like that, and Doug Atkins, it was like 17'10".
Yeah, I remember Doug Atkins.
Big for that time, big now, but big for that time.
Chicago Bears defensive end.
And cross-face Unitas. Oh, yes. Cross-face Unitas and took half his nose off.
Whew, man.
And so Johnny's in a huddle, getting ready for the next play while he's trying to reposition his nose. Mm-hmm. And that's all I can tell you about the way football was. So
yeah, I remember a story about him in the championship game against the Giants. I think it was the '58 game, which was the famous one that put pro football on the map on television.
That was a sudden death game. Yes.
Yeah.
In the stadium.
And they said that Unitas went into the huddle on the last drive and said, if there's anybody in this huddle that doesn't think we're going to take this ball and go downfield and score, then get out. In other words, I'm going to take you downfield. We're going to win this game. He had that kind of confidence. And you're right. I never saw Unitas ever. He took some tough shots.
Oh no.
I mean, things were worse back then. The refs would let him get away with things they wouldn't let him get away with now. And I mean, he took a lot of shots where he just get back up and go after it.
It was in that one article where they were talking about a preseason game which got out of hand. Guy ran out of bounds. The defense kept chasing him. It didn't matter. They were out of bounds. The guy grabbed them and body slammed the guy in a press table or something like that. And there was a high draft pick that was sitting on the bench, and he looked to one of the veterans and he goes, "Christmas, man, does this happen all the time?" And he goes, "Oh no." He goes, "In the regular season it gets worse." And the draft pick retired.
Oh man,
those are the days. All right. Listen, thanks for being with us, and we will continue this, hopefully, if we're all both around.
Yeah.
And because I tell you, as you're talking about this, that which was in the past, we are definitely getting a mirror. I mean, forget Peikoff's book, which also was cool, about where we would be going. Well, now we're going there.
Yeah, I wish I had his eloquence as far as language and all that, but, I think we're doing a pretty good job for just a couple of guys.
Look, as one literature professor said to me, and I thought this was accurate. He goes, there's no such thing as a perfect work. I mean, stop. Yeah. I mean, you can throw brickbats at anybody that does anything. There's no such thing as a perfect work. What you look for, and I'm going to probably do a discussion with P.J. O'Rourke about this too, and that is, how do you tell good information from bad information, or that side of the tracks from your side of the tracks? It really is labyrinthine about who's got what going on. But there is no such thing as a perfect work. But Peikoff, I thought, and I think you understand that too, that, confronted with what I found just as I was, it was like, holy mackerel. I mean, he saw something going on here.
Mm-hmm.
His solutions and what he thought, it's okay. I mean, the guy was an objectivist. He thinks that all religion is baloney, and I can understand why. He doesn't necessarily have the solutions, but the fact that he saw this early on, I think, was very accurate. So
I think actually probably the first people to see any parallels were during the time of the Third Reich and just prior to its taking over. And I'm trying to think of one of this great writer. Golly, I'm completely blanking out. Yes, I am 62 and holding.
Likes to think, but
can't.
It
was Dorothy Thompson's. I think he was Dorothy Thompson's husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the writer's name? I cannot come up with it.
I didn't want you to go that far, but anyway, yes, I can't remember either, so that makes two of us.
Yeah. But at any rate, he talked about, how fascism would come to the United States, and showed some parallels long time ago.
Hey,
a lot of people have seen it.
That wasn't Will Durant. No, it wasn't Will Durant, was it? No.
No.
Okay. All right.
No.
I won't go any further than
we'll
that.
We'll think about it, and and Gordon loves this guy. I forget, Gordon talks about him a lot. Oh,
well, now you're really putting the pressure on me. I'm gonna get an email. Why did you know that? And he's right. So, but the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Well, I tell you, it's tough getting old, man. You can't think of names. I mean, just can't think. So you got to write it all down ahead of time.
All right. The way I like to look at it is, the older you get, the more information you process, and your brain can only handle so much.
Yeah.
So you have to start offloading stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I'm sticking to that story.
Yeah. I think I need to offload quite a bit.
Well, I tell you
what. I just don't know anybody who wants to hear it.
One of the best lines. Junior high school was absolutely. I should one day before I die.
Yeah.
Write just kind of like some situational comedy about junior high school, which I think were the absolute best years ever.
Yeah.
But I remember.
I had a lot of fun. I remember those years. It was kind of traumatic too. I was kind of.
I forget that stuff.
Yeah.
I go for the highlights on that one.
Just remember the good stuff.
Oh yeah.
I think my mother will bring up something that happened, or somebody that I knew back during that era, and I had forgotten all about it. And I go, "Yeah, you're right, Mom." And I'm thinking, "Oh God, I wish she hadn't brought that up."
Well,
she brought up the name of a girl that I'd known in junior high who was like my nemesis, who was always getting me in trouble, If I might throw a spit wad at some guy while the teacher wasn't looking, and she'd immediately go rat on me, that kind of thing. And she brought up that girl's name, and it was like, oh gosh, I hadn't thought about her in 30 years. My mom brings it up.
May I tell my story?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
It's your stuff.
No, it was just that, talking about age, we had a substitute. She was a blessed woman. I mean, older than dirt. And she always wound up seemingly teaching, like substituting for history classes. And one day, one guy next to me, who I never gave credit for being that blithe, said to me, he goes, "No wonder she teaches history. She's old enough she remembers all of it." And I'm like, well, I really can't argue with that. Hey, listen.
That wasn't nice. That was not nice.
But not necessarily inaccurate. Mrs. Postel, we love you.
Yeah, she was there.
Oh yeah.
Man, an eyewitness to history, yeah.
Fart and dust all the way, that's right. All right, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Okay.
Can we not do this another day?
Oh, yeah, we can do it again.
All right, have a nice holiday weekend.
Same to you, man.